Hey guys, David here and welcome to part 4 of the CNC conversion series. Last time we assembled all like the base parts after we disassembled the whole machine, and we now got the Y-axis here working. And in this video we're gonna continue on reassembling the machine and implementing the motors. So next step is gonna be the X-axis, which is the table that moves back and forth here. So let's get started on that. So the goal here is to take this assembly, which is the motor for the X-axis, and mount it here. Now there are some things that I do have to keep in mind, and that is, first I of course have to drill the holes, but also this is interfering with here, so I'll probably have to grind away part of the meat here, which is in the way with the ball screw holder here, or I'll have to modify this a little bit. I'm gonna have to see which one works better. And then I can mount it here, and I'll probably do have to also do some modifications to the base when I want to mount the ball screw, since it also, the nut is a little bit larger than the previous trapezoidal screw that was in here. So when I look at this here, I see a crap ton of grinding ahead of me. For one, back here I right now have the like a bearing on the other side, but on this side I do need to grind it quite a lot. It's almost 5 millimeters, but that's not that big of a deal since it's like not that big of a space. I might have to grind down more, but it's only very limited. The much bigger issue is that this here, this lead screw doesn't quite sit flat yet, and that is because this nut is a bit too tall even on the underside. I knew it was going to be too tall on this side, but that just means that I have to grind away at the other base, which is once again only in a small location. But when I turn the nut around here, this surface here still also is about 5 millimeters too high compared to the ground. Now I can grind down a little bit of the nut there and a little bit of the nut holder as well. That's gonna give me probably like 3 millimeters, but I will also probably have to at least grind down the high spots all the way along the ball screw here, which is, although I only need to go down a very small amount, it still is a lot more grinding since it's just such a long area. Another thing that I didn't even notice before is that the gibs here are not centered on the table. They're slightly offset, and I of course mounted the lead screw nicely centered, so it is slightly off to one side, which once again just results in me having to do even more grinding. That sounds fun. So as you can see, I've now got everything installed. I've got the bearing here on the correct side. That took a lot of grinding. And I also got all the lead screw in nicely with the nut here in the end, and it can move freely the entire way, which yet again took a couple hours of grinding. All in all, it was about an afternoon of grinding, but now it should hopefully fit in. And what I need to do now is make an adapter from the nut to the table below it, and I'm going to show you that over at the table what I have planned for that. So here we have the old system. I just put the old nut back in here, and it's actually super easy to remove it if you have access like this. As you can see, it is just simply clamped into place with 2 bolts that squish it together like this. And while this system seems super easy and kind of too easy, I think it actually works. As long as like everything is mounted solid to each other, I should be able to use the system as well. So my nut of course is a little bit bigger here, and I will have to like modify it, but I think if I cut the aluminum part here in half, maybe grind a little bit on this part, I can drop it down enough so that it will fit. It needs to drop down about like 6 millimeters, and then I can make another piece that bolts to 2 screw holes here that then can be clamped in here. While it's not the most beautiful solution, I think it's gonna work quite okay. The other alternative would be to grind away here enough until this can just sit flat on here and I can bolt through here. This would be a little bit stronger probably, but also super hard to get at, since I can't really get at this without removing it. And this is much simpler since I can remove it from this side. So that's probably what I'm gonna go with. So here we have the result of some angle grinder and some circular saw work, which was not very pretty, but since my milling machine here has kind of a bad case of being disassembled, that was my only option. So I managed to attach this piece here with 2 M6 bolts to the nut holder here, which is also attached with 2 bolts. I don't think I'm going to be able to put these in here since that would interfere, but I think that 2 should be enough. So this is how it looks, and then it fits into the other thing. Fits in just like that. So do you guys remember how I said that the lead screw is slightly offset because I didn't account for some of the things in here? Well, to make that offset work, I had the piece that slots into the bottom piece here also had to be offset, but I did not pay attention that I had the table upside down, so I thought, oh, it's on this side offset, so I made it on this side offset, but actually it had to be the other way around. So what I spent the past 1.5 hours doing is taking the table off again, doing the whole circus, grinding a whole bunch again on that other piece that's connected to, and assembling the table again. But now it should actually work, and I have quite a bit of play with the lead screw to actually position it properly. So I can now go ahead and mount the motor plate here on the end with the lead screw in it, and position everything, lock it down, mount the motor onto here, and hopefully have a functioning X-axis. With the x-axis now complete, I can get started on the z-axis. I have here the top plate of the Z-column with the old bearing in it. I'm gonna have to remove that bearing and then mount this bearing block onto here and also the motor onto here, and that's gonna be like the top plate of the Z-column. And then I can get started on attaching the lead screw nut to the actual head of the machine. And no, there's no need to tell me that this is not the right way to do it and that I'm gonna destroy the bearing this way. I know that, but I don't really need that bearing anymore, and this is just the easiest way. Alright, so here I have the old piece that was used to mount the lead screw to like the motor mount for the Z-axis, and in here is where the other piece interfaces with it, that was the nut, and I just took this piece here, I ground off a little bit to make clearance, and now I need to attach it to this ball screw nut like mount. So I just need to mount this to each other here, which is actually like quite a simple connection that I need. The only issue is that one is aluminum and the other one's steel, so welding is not exactly all too well possible. So I'm probably gonna end up having to do some sort of screw connection, but the issue with that is that I have a big old hole in this bottom here, and I can't interfere with the nut here. Ideally I would use one of like 2 of these 6 holes here, but that would also require another like adapter here. So I don't know if that's gonna be the easiest one, to just make it like a corner bracket here and mount it that way. So here's the finished piece. I just made some like little aluminum corner brackets here with just holes to bolt into the aluminum part and to bolt into some holes I tapped into the steel part here. It works quite well, it's very simple and it gets the job done. So now I'll go ahead and install this. So as you can see, I now got the Y-axis all mounted. I mounted up the motor on top and the column here. It was really handy to actually use the axis lock here on the side while I hadn't properly mounted it yet. I just put it on a piece of wood, then locked the axis with those, then I could remove the wood and screw in the piston and the ball nut mounting back here without it falling down or anything. I guess I should have tightened those when I was disassembling the machine, and it wouldn't have fallen down like it did. But now with this done, I can actually go ahead and mount the head to it, and this is actually starting to look like a mill again. Alright, so here we go. Now all three axes have the lead screw installed and their respective motor is installed. Next steps are going to be finishing up the enclosure and starting on the electronics, like getting all the wires run, doing the controller board, the limit switches and all that good stuff. But for this part, I think we're gonna stop here. So if you like this video, please leave a like down below and also make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any of the future parts. If the next part is already out, you can click on it here on the end screen, and otherwise make sure to also follow me on social media, mainly Instagram, link down below. I post very frequent update about this project there, and you can see how far I've progressed before I release the video on YouTube. So thanks for watching, and until next time.